We're sorry, but we have to terminate your contract, effective immediately. I heard those words in a cold meeting room surrounded by three people at least 2 decades younger than me. The one on the left was tapping away on a laptop. The one in the middle pretended to look sad. And the one on the right, the new HR director, was reading word for word from a printed script. I said nothing. I didn't interrupt. I didn't protest. I just quietly looked out the glass window. The same view I'd seen every morning for nearly 19 years at this company. None of them knew. I was the one who wrote the code for the management system they were using. None of them knew I was the only one who still remembered the original root password, and for sure none of them realized they had just removed their final key. My name is Daniel Granger, 58 years old. I was the head of IT systems at Betrayal Engineering, an industrial technology firm based in Denver. I joined the company back when files were stored on floppy disks and data was backed up on external hard drives. I'm not a genius. I didn't invent anything revolutionary, but I understand how the system works. I know every line of code running in the background, and I built a substructure, a final layer of security undocumented in the internal manuals, designed to protect the system in case of an attack or internal sabotage. No one forced me to do it. I just wanted the system to be safe, to ensure the company wouldn't be disrupted by a rookie's mistake. The irony? They decided I was an outdated relic that needed replacing. The official reason in the email said, restructuring, aiming for a younger, more agile team aligned with modern tech trends. I've heard that phrase too many times in hollow TED Talks. I knew what they meant. A 58-year-old guy like me didn't fit the executive team's dream of cloud-based automation. They might be right. I don't use TikTok. I don't like Slack. I still prefer handwriting before I code. But they forgot one thing. I don't need those tools because I built the very foundation their young team is running on. I walked out of that room with the termination envelope in my hand. No goodbyes. No eye contact. Only the server screens blinking green down the hallway, almost like they were waiting for a final command. And as I stepped into the elevator, I thought, they can replace me, but no one knows where the master password is. I started at Betrayal Engineering in 2004. Back then, the company was just a small office on the third floor of a commercial building with 17 employees and a single Windows 2000 server that crashed at least twice a day. I didn't come in as some tech savior. I came to help them manage their messy data. But I quickly realized nothing here was built to scale. The accounting software was fragmented, maintenance schedules were printed from Excel, and remote access was virtually impossible. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for a raise or request a bigger budget. I just did the work, quietly. I began rebuilding piece by piece, from internal email systems to private servers, to digitizing all technical documents from paper to the cloud. The code I wrote late at night, long after the office lights were out, is still running smoothly today. The internal security system they still use? I built it. The automated vendor access gateway? I configured it. The Tier 3 encrypted emergency backup file? I'm the only one who knows where it is and how to open it. I never told anyone. I didn't need to. In IT, if you have to talk too much about what you've done, it probably wasn't good enough. I lived simply, always sitting at the desk in the far corner, where the fluorescent light flickered. Every morning, I made coffee with the old machine. Every late evening, I was the one who turned off the server room lights before heading home. I wasn't good at handshakes or presentations. People often called me Quiet Daniel, but no one ever questioned. When something went wrong, I was the first person they looked for. Everything started to change. About 2 years ago, when Betrayal secured expansion funding, the new executive board came in. They talked about speed, about digital transformation, about next-generation technology leadership. At first, I was excited. The company was finally growing. But then, I was excluded from strategic meetings. I was no longer CC'd on technical emails. Software updates were deployed without asking for my input. One day, I discovered my personal workstation had been accessed, using a secondary IT account without permission. Then they hired someone new up, Brandon, 32 years old, formerly from a tech startup. Brandon was fast, articulate, and fluent in buzzwords. platform integration, open API interfaces, AI-powered system automation. I didn't hate him. I even helped him get familiar with the system, even though most of the documentation was created by me, with no official versions available. Brandon took notes, nodded along, then started making new proposals. In one internal meeting, I heard him say, "The old system is pretty outdated. We'll simplify and modernize everything." That word, old, that was me. A month later, I was reassigned from infrastructure lead to special technical consultant. No more full access, no more team, just a lone desk with no one sitting nearby. I stayed quiet, not because I felt powerless, but because I knew some things can't be simplified. They changed the interface, installed flashy new software, but the system's core, the foundation built line by hand, they didn't dare touch it because they didn't understand it, and because I never handed that part over to anyone. I thought about speaking up, telling them the system still had vulnerabilities, that the security patches needed reviewing, that some emergency codes only existed in my memory. But then I saw Brandon in the boardroom talking about self-driving clouds and decentralized architecture, while the company's servers still ran on legacy VMware. And I realized they wouldn't listen. Maybe they'd have to watch it all fall apart before they learned how to rebuild. So I started documenting everything on my own, logging system changes, access permissions, new accounts, not out of anger, but because I once loved this place, and I still wanted to protect it, even if I was no longer welcome. I didn't realize things had already begun until the silence started to feel unnatural. After being pushed out of my former role, I still came into the office every day. No more meetings, no more tech team, but I still showed up to observe. And then I started noticing things that didn't quite add up. One day, Brandon handed me a packet of documents to review the new security structure. I flipped through it and nearly laughed out loud. They were trying to rewrite a system without realizing it was built on 3 nested code layers, some of which were written in a language that's now practically obsolete. I had designed it as an emergency shell in case the system was attacked or tampered with. There was no documentation. No one in the company even knew it existed, except me. I asked Brandon, "Have you located the auxiliary API gateways yet?" He looked at me like I was speaking Latin. No need, sir. We use integration plugins now." I smiled. First mistake. A few days later, I noticed something else. My access had been revoked from the core system management directory. No notice, no explanation. I tried checking through a private path, an old piece of code I used to enter the system's mirror mode. Blocked, but not deleted. Someone had put up a virtual wall, hiding the root directory behind a simulated interface. This wasn't a technical upgrade. It was a deliberate effort to lock me out. I began to suspect something, but instead of getting angry, I chose to document everything. Using my personal computer, I captured screenshots of the new file structure, recorded every user's access permissions, and, most importantly, tracked changes logged by a strange account named admin.mirror2. I searched the system. No one knew who the account belonged to. It wasn't listed by IT. No actual employee was behind it. A ghost account, silently altering the system core. I remembered something I'd embedded in the original code. If anyone modifies the core without verifying the subcode sequence, the system won't shut down, but it will automatically record their entire activity. I opened a backup copy, a file I'd saved at home on a private hard drive, and I found it. The entire access log, encrypted and stored in a secondary vault drive, just as I'd designed. The main user wasn't Brandon. It was the new chief operating officer, Carl Vensley. Carl had joined the company around the same time Brandon was hired. He had previously worked for a company that was sued for selling internal systems data to third parties. I had read his name before, but never imagined Bricewell would hire someone like that without a proper background check. I connected the dots. I was isolated right as system changes were being made. A rogue account was accessing core data. The user wasn't from IT, but the COO. and the entire new system was being built to mask real data access. I had no more doubts. They didn't just want to replace me. They wanted to erase me, to take full control of the system without leaving traces. But they forgot one thing. That system had one final layer, a hidden lock I called the Dead Man Gate, only accessible by entering a three-part code: birth date, internal code, and root command string. Only I knew it. I began preparing my first move, not to destroy, but to prove people can be replaced, but the memory of a system cannot. I didn't need access. I had something more powerful, a foundation they couldn't erase, because they didn't understand it. I started by activating the Dead Man Gate, a mechanism I'd built 10 years ago in case of unauthorized internal access. The Dead Man Gate didn't lock the system. It didn't send alerts. It simply monitored, silently, any actions that exceeded access privileges. Within 48 hours, I had a full log of entries from admin.mirror, sometimes at 2 a.m., sometimes over the weekend. This user had downloaded files containing sensitive client financial data, files that no one was allowed to touch without board approval. My first move, a controlled leak. I sent an anonymous email to the chairman of the board with a private link to the Dead Man log, labeled as Security Breach Verification File. No explanation, no signature, just one subject line. You're being watched from the inside. Do not shut this system down. Only I know how to undo this. My second move, real-time mirroring. I used a small network device, still plugged into an old backup system from years ago, to create a live mirror of the entire core system's activity. I sent that mirror to the only person I trusted, Maggie Turner, a former systems engineer at Bricewell, now retired and working as an independent consultant. Maggie knew the system, and she knew me. Daniel, if this gets out, more than one person's job is on the line. This could take down the whole operations division. I spoke slowly. I don't want anyone to lose their job. I want justice, and I want the system protected from those who don't deserve it. My third move, bait. I created a decoy account, d.granger, admin, and let it accidentally appear in the access logs. I knew they'd notice. I knew Carl would panic. And sure enough, 24 hours later, Carl issued a command to the IT department. Urgently reset all secondary system access privileges, especially unusual API ports. But when they did, the system locked up for 27 minutes. Client data stopped syncing. Over $6 million order from Canada missed its processing window. And me? I just sat there, sipping coffee. The next morning, I got a call, not from HR, not from Brandon, from the chairman of Bricewell. Daniel, I don't know what you're doing, but I need to see you. Now. I didn't refuse. I walked into the old building. No badge, no appointment. But this time, even security knew who I was. In the conference room, everyone was there. Carl, pale as a ghost. Brandon, hands shaking. The entire IT team, silent, frozen. The chairman looked at me, then pointed to the screen. You're the only one who still remembers the root system password, aren't you? I nodded. And I'm the only one who knows the system's being manipulated from within. Carl began to speak, rambling about tech transitions and access misunderstandings. I cut in. I have the logs. I have the mirror. I have the operation history. And more importantly, I didn't delete anyone from the system. I simply let you expose yourselves. The chairman leaned back, exhaled. So what do you want, Daniel? I looked him straight in the eye. I don't want my old job back. I don't want severance pay. I want one thing only: clean out the people who've corrupted what I spent my life protecting. Within a week, Carl was suspended. An internal investigation was launched. The system was restored to its original structure, with the master password handed directly to the board, sealed in a physical envelope. I didn't stay. I didn't sign a consulting deal. I just walked away, this time on my own terms, leaving behind one final message. A system isn't strong because it's modern. It's strong because someone understands it and protects it, even when they've been cast aside. The first news that spread internally wasn't Carl got suspended. It was, Daniel is back. There was no official announcement, just me logging into the system once with my old credentials, and that alone was enough for the entire IT department to understand. The game was over. Carl Vensley, the chief operating officer, was suspended within the week. An independent audit team was brought in. What they uncovered went far beyond initial suspicion. Internal logs had been manually altered. Data transfers were routed through anonymous proxy channels. A long-term plan was underway to replace the entire internal infrastructure with an external system operated by a company in which Carl held shares. Brandon, the eager young engineer, at first claimed ignorance, but then recovered emails from an archive backup revealed he not only knew, he'd also profited from disguised maintenance contracts. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel vindicated. I just exhaled, because now no one could call me paranoid or overly suspicious again. A week later, I was invited to a special meeting, this time called by the chairman of the board himself. The room was quiet, no junior staff, no legal teams. Only the real decision makers, and one empty chair waiting for me. The chairman began, "Daniel, we owe you a formal apology, not for letting you go, but for not listening to you sooner." I nodded. No resentment, no jabs. I simply said, "Sometimes a system needs a failure to realize what part is truly core." I was just the core everyone thought was obsolete. After the meeting, they offered me a new position: Chief Advisor of Systems and Internal Security, independent of executive oversight, full authority, no weekly reports, no management chain. Just one mission: to keep the company from collapsing from within. I declined. Not out of anger, but because I had already done what I needed to do. This recognition came at the right time, in the right way, and I wanted it to end here, before it turned into a burden. I left behind a full set of documentation, clear, complete, and with guidance for the next generation of engineers. I handwrote the final 3 master passwords and sealed them in an envelope, which I gave directly to the chairman. Before I walked away, I left them with one final line: "No system is unbreakable, but the one who safeguards it, they can't be replaced if you don't understand who they really are." The day I left that building, I wasn't the man who had been fired. I walked out as the one who saved the entire system from the very people trying to control it through ignorance. There were no drums, no farewell parties, just the soft glow of afternoon light, a warm cup of coffee, and the feeling that this time I had truly been seen and understood. I didn't return to the company. I didn't take on another job afterward either. I chose to move back to the countryside, renting a small house by the forest, where the Wi-Fi is so weak, even emails load slowly. And I like it that way. I no longer sit in front of 3 screens at once, no longer manage thousands of lines of code each day. Instead, I wake up early, water the plants, make coffee, and sometimes smile when old memories come back. People ask me, "Don't you regret it? A high-level position, a public apology, your name finally known, and you just walked away?" I simply reply, I didn't do it to return. I did it to protect what was right when no one else had the courage to speak up. I was never perfect. I stayed silent too long. I let myself be pushed aside without resistance. But I learned something. Silence isn't surrender, and stepping back is sometimes how you prepare for the right moment to return. Once I opened my old laptop, the one I used for over 10 years. Inside was the very first system design I ever wrote for Bricewell. I was just 39 then. No one knew my name. No one remembered my face. But the system still runs, and it's never crashed. I looked at the final line of that design file, the note I typed late one sleepless night. If one day I'm gone, let this system remind them I was here. I smiled. No recognition needed, no monuments. I just needed to know for myself I did the right thing. And if there's one truth I've taken from all this, it's this: not everyone who controls a system understands it, and not everyone who understands a system gets to stay. But if you are the latter, the one who understands, preserves, and protects what's good in your own quiet way, then remember, you are not alone. We are here, in the nameless lines of code, in the unsigned logs, in the stories that will still be told, even if no images ever appear. Because there are some people, even when erased from the system, remain its vital foundation, irreplaceable. End of video. The audience won't just remember Daniel Granger. They'll remember this truth. Sometimes you have to disappear to show that you were never truly replaced.